Welcome back to Skating Penguin Network, everyone. It's Robbie here, joined by Snail, and we are back from the Christmas break, and so are the Pittsburgh Penguins. It is the evening of December 29th. We are winding down 2024 here, but before we get there, we do have some Penguins hockey to talk about. After 4 days off, the Penguins did return on Saturday night to begin a home and home set with the New York Islanders that they completed just a bit ago here on Sunday back in Pittsburgh. But before we dive into the games, I'm gonna jump over to Snail real quick and ask him, Snail, how was your holiday break, your Christmas, and so forth, since we've been away from the podcast?
Yeah, the holidays were awesome. Christmas was great. It was a nice little reset, and yeah, just some good quality time with friends and with family, and yeah, all that good stuff that you can kind of count on for the holidays to bring. So mine was great. How was yours, Robbie?
Yeah, good as well. Definitely nice to slow things down for a couple days, kind of regroup, reset, um, and kind of rejuvenate as we head into the end of the year and into the new year here. And I'm sure the Penguins felt that as well, though it did
Hmm.
not translate exactly as planned on Saturday night on Long Island. The Penguins go into this game. Uh, Again, feeling good. They're 9-3-1 since Thanksgiving, heading into Christmas, and we talked about it before the break. The Penguins need these games against the Islanders, who are a a bad team, a struggling team, a team that cannot score, and unfortunately, it does not turn out that way for the Penguins. At least on Saturday night, they fell 6-3 in Game One of this series, and it was 1-1 after a period of hockey. And then the Islanders rolled off three straight unanswered goals in the second period, the first half of the second period, in a 4 minute span. Actually, it's 4-1, and Tristan Jarry's not playing well. The team is not playing well. It's just a very disappointing kind of emergence out of the break here, but the Penguins do fight back. Noah Chari and Ricard Raquel get on the scoreboard to make it 4-3 after two. Ricard Raquel now up to 17 goals as of this recording. He gets his 17th against the Islanders in game one of this set. And you're feeling good after two periods, but the Islanders hold firm and they not only shut the Penguins off the scoreboard, but they actually get two insurance goals late in the third period to close this one out 6-3 and open the Christmas the back end of the Christmas break with a 6-3 victory over the Penguins. And I think overall, with all as good as we felt going into the break, we certainly can't say that we felt very good coming out of the break because the Penguins uh, did not look good in this first of two games against the Islanders.
Yeah, they didn't look too good. They didn't seem as fresh as maybe we'd hoped they'd be. But you have to remember that the Islanders had just recently gotten Matthew Barzal and Anthony Duclair back in the lineup, two guys that they rely on a lot to score. If they didn't have Matthew Barzal, this team, I mean, even with the acquisition of Bo Horvat a couple years ago now, that's just a team that can't really create offensively and put the puck in the net. But they just so happen to have gotten those guys back pretty recently, so they were probably fresh and charged up and ready to get back to it and try to make some leeway for the Islanders and get their team back into some winning ways. So I felt like it was a combination of the Penguins not being the freshest, and then also having the Islanders having some rejuvenation and getting their superstar Matthew Barzal and Anthony Duclair, who's he's not like a prolific goal scorer, but he can create offensively and has those wheels. And we've been on record saying we'd put our hand up to take an Anthony Duclair on
Yeah.
the Penguins squad. So I feel like a little bit of combination of that. 6-3, it looks worse than it really was. I think they got that empty netter at the end. Michael Bunting seems to really get up for these games against the Islanders, and we'll get to more of him after we go over this game that we just wrapped up. But He's kind of seeming to be the only one that seems to have had maybe a little bit of a. He didn't come off seeming slow at all in these games against the Islanders, and I feel like that's kind of his style. Like he might show up for a game like that. The Islanders are kind of gritty, really like to put the I don't know the pin down. They've been known for having that fourth line that really plays kind of I don't want to say dirty, but tough to play against. And Bunting was doing that right back to them, and he got a few goals over the last couple of days. But yeah, Robbie, I don't have too many thoughts on the Islanders' loss, but I believe did they have? I don't think Varlamov is healthy right now. That's Sorokin. Also I just mentioned without Matthew Barzal and maybe a couple other players that put the puck in the net, that Sorokin gets a little bit underappreciated because of I think just how like unsexy the Islanders kind of are. He's one of those Russian goaltenders that if there was an Olympic roster or something, he's probably making that team as a second or third goaltender.
Yeah, Sorokin is one of the best in the league. There's no doubt about that. Going down, 4-1. It was always going to be a tough climb out of that with him in goal. They do fight back. They do fight their way back into it, but it wasn't going to be enough. The Penguins only generated 25 shots in this game, so it wasn't their best offensive performance to even test Sorokin all that much. You mentioned Michael Bunting. He, after the slow start of the year he had to the point where he was healthy scratch for a game, he's now at 10 goals on the season. So nice to see him get to that double-digit mark after the way his season started, and proving that one big piece of that Gensel trade it has worked out for them. So a positive there as well. A guy on the Islanders that seems to get up for these games against the Penguins on the other side, Anders Lee. 2 goals in this game, and he was not quiet in the Sunday game either, which we'll talk about here in a second. He gets 2 goals in this game. He has he gets up to 15 with his pair on Saturday night. And again, the Islanders have trouble scoring. They didn't have trouble tonight. They get 6. Lee is up to 15, as I said. But a tough hockey game for the Penguins here. Coming out of the break, you're hoping maybe they're a little fresher. It doesn't pan out in this one. And the good news is, though, you have less than 24 hours to sit with it, get the bad taste out of your mouth. And the Penguins do exactly that on Sunday night back in Pittsburgh. What should have been a comfortable victory got a little tight late in the third period. But the Penguins do bounce back and get a 3-2 home victory over the Islanders. So they do split this home and home set out of Christmas. Anthony Beauvillier, he who we were kind of holding up as the whipping boy back before Christmas, gets the Penguins on the board in the first period. The aforementioned Michael Bunting, his second power play goal in as many nights. To make it 2-0 early in the second period, his 11th now in the year. And before we go any farther, Snail, we're going to touch on this real quick. We thought for a second that Sidney Crosby made history on Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, he did not get credit for an assist on the Michael Bunting power play goal on Long Island. Instead, he does get a no doubt assist on the Michael Bunting power play goal in Pittsburgh. His 30th assist of the year, and most importantly, it breaks the tie with Mario Lemieux for most in Penguins history, a title which Crosby now holds on his own. And if you're thinking, again, many people thought Mario's record was never going to be broken. This could very well be one that, if it doesn't stand forever, it's going to stand for a heck of a long time in the franchise history.
Yeah, well, it's kind of funny with that first, the kind of like the faux breaking of the goal that happened yesterday, which, if you're listening to this 2 days ago, it was actually Bunting's 200th career point. So there was going to be a little bit of a tug of war over who gets that puck. Jokingly, I remember on the broadcast they were saying maybe split the puck in half. Bunting might come up and ask Sid, "That's my 200th point. Give me that puck." So good for Bunting that one came off the board. He can have they can pull the tape off of it and give it back to him. But yeah, I mean, this is one of those ones. Um, Sid doing Sid things, breaking Lemieux's assist record. I mean, like you said, Robbie, this is probably one that I mean, it may never be broken, but I definitely think that his assist record will stand longer than Mario Lemieux's did. I just don't even see with the way the game is trending, the Penguins getting a player that can break that assist record or get close to it and have the team around him. Because you got to remember, assists are assists. You're setting guys up, but they got to put the
Yep.
puck in the net too. It's
Yeah.
really a kind of an ode to the players that they've been able to surround Sid with. And when you look at that list of assist leaders, once you start going down, and it's you're looking at names like Malkin, Yager, and then I think Letang's at the bottom. I mean, how many players have come through Pittsburgh and stayed as long as those guys haven't been able to put up numbers? It's just something that doesn't really happen anymore. And like I said, with the way the league's trending, I don't know if you'll see players anymore playing, God, however many games Sid has played and Mario played and Malkin and Letang have played with one organization. Yeah, it's really an amazing feat. It's cool to watch and see. It's a nice little post Christmas gift from Sid to everybody, just to watch him continue greatness. So, and I love it coming against the Islanders. Another Metro rival. Yeah, I think it was drawn up perfectly, and Sid he isn't counting. He doesn't care. He just wants the win. So, it's cool. I heard a little quote from him saying how it's he just wants to, just enjoys being in the NHL, wanted to be in the NHL, and just being on a list next to Mario is pretty cool, but essentially kind of alluding to that's not what he gets up for every day and looks at the leaderboards of the league and says, who can I pass today?
Yeah, and he does it at home, which is probably fitting um, as well. Would have obviously loved to see him getting points. So yeah, the one on Saturday night is what it is, but he gets it anyway. Not that there's any doubt that he was going to get it, but he does. And at this point, the Penguins have a 2-0 lead. They hold that 2-0 lead through the second period, and then in the third period, our buddy Phil Tomasino, back on the score sheet with a power play goal, kind of a funky bounce, finds its way past the goaltender. It's 3-0. You're feeling pretty good. Should know that you never feel that comfortable when the Penguins are playing. And old
God,
friend
no.
this is where Anders Lee makes his appearance with another 2-goal effort. They Phil Patrick Waugh does his patented pull the goalie absurdly early um, tactic, and it pays off. They get one with about 7 minutes left. Still a 2-goal lead. It is what it is, but they get the second one with just under 4 minutes left, and it's Lee again. So he has 4 goals in these 2 games against the Penguins for his 17th now on the year. But the Penguins buckle down. They do hold on um, uh, to escape with a 3-2 victory. But yeah, shame on us for thinking that it could have been comfortable after being up 3-0. Because the Penguins, again, they just let a team sneak back in. But to their credit, they do hold on. They get the 2 points. They don't give up a point by going to overtime or risk that second point. So a weekend split. Each team wins their home game. And the Penguins now, as of this recording, sit in the second wildcard spot. And I believe they're only 3 points behind the Tampa Bay Lightning for that first wildcard spot. So we exit Christmas here, and the Penguins are in a playoff spot. And that is a pretty remarkable thing to say compared to where we were even a month ago.
Yeah, for real. I mean, I couldn't have said it better. It's God, they're never. Some of them are rarely pretty, and very there's rarely a comfortable moment in the game where you can sit back and just kind of enjoy the Penguins, just really giving it to another team and running away with it. But I don't know, just where the Penguins are, you'll take this over where they were at, like you said, maybe before that Thanksgiving break, where they're, we're thinking, is this a top 5 pick year? How are we going to keep these guys getting up for games when they're out of it before Thanksgiving? But this Penguins, the DNA of this team right now is they've got some young players and with spunk that don't have that uh, I don't know, whatever that kind of, it's just kind of a dark cloud that's been over the Penguins, it seems, at times over the last couple of years. And you bring in some guys that are trying to prove themselves. It's kind of the last chance saloon for a couple of these guys. Cody Glass, Anthony Beauvillier, Tomasino getting a change of scenery. Puljujärvi, who we haven't really seen. I mean, he's got everything to prove at this point. They re-signed Nedeljkovic. Jari was in the minors. Like, all these guys have a little bit of something, a reason to get up for these games and try to, the answer within the room. You hear that a lot. I think that they've proven that they've been able to kind of climb out, and I feel like this is kind of the team you got right now. They can beat bad teams. They can kind of compete with great teams, and yeah, I don't. It'll be really interesting to see how the rest of the year shakes out, because one thing this team has proven is that you can't put your finger on what they are really. They kind of keep you guessing, and they kind of keep you on the edge of your seat. But when you got Sidney Crosby at the helm, and you've got Malkin, who still wants to be great and do great things, you've got the talent in Carlson, who can really kill you at times, but he can also really just wow you with his skill. And you've got these young, good players with something to prove. It just creates an interesting product on the ice, and sure, we're here to nitpick at it and kind of point out flaws and praise the good things that happen. But man, I got to tell you that it's been every game. You never know what you're gonna get, and things are looking pretty good right now. They found themselves in a playoff spot, and that second wild card spot in the East is this might be an all year jousting match, Robbie.
Yeah. Yeah, it very well may be. I don't like. They're just in a position now. You're at 39 points, even 6 points behind Carolina, to get a third spot in that division. Not impossible, but I mean that's still a hill to climb, especially with Carolina having games in hand. You're gonna be in a fight for that wild card if you're gonna get a playoff spot, and it's going to be a log jam right up until the finish line. That's just how it's going to be. The Penguins, they're at 23, 38 games played now, so a little more than half the season left. So yeah,
It's
it's
gone
going
by
to be.
quick.
It has gone by quick. We'll be at the midway point by next week, at least for the Penguins,
Hmm.
as they get ready to go into 2025 here. But no, it's going to be like you said, a jousting match to the very end. Actually, next Sunday, if my math is right here, will be the halfway point for the Penguins. So as of as of a week from now, we will be at that halfway point. We'll see where the Penguins stand at that point. But I think it's going to be one of those, unless they would go on another just off the rails kind of um, stretches in January. I think they're going to be in the conversation right to the end, like last year, which it produces some exciting hockey, even if it's not always the most stress-free hockey. But um, yeah, that's what the Penguins. That's who the Penguins are. Kind of, they are a wild card bubble team, which I think we all kind of predicted at the beginning of the season. It
Hmm.
didn't look great for a while there because they really came out of the gate, stumbled out of the gates, but they've righted the ship and they're back in it now. Tuesday night, New Year's Eve, they get another shot at a struggling team. They go to Detroit. It should be a
Oh,
fun
put the
hockey
pin
game.
down. I think that they should. That's a mandatory two
Oh,
points.
absolutely. Especially with what's coming up after this, when on Friday they have to go to Florida, and then on Sunday they have to go to Carolina. You need 2 points out of this hockey game. That's just the fact of what it is. And it's not really getting any easier here um, in January, even after the Carolina game, because you have a homestand, but you have Edmonton, you have a good Ottawa team, Tampa Bay,
Hmm.
who you're fighting with, and then you got to go on a long, long road trip that includes a swing out to Snail's neck of the woods out in Seattle,
That's right.
but
Yeah.
also Washington's in there, the Kings are in there, Utah, who boat raced you once this year, is in there as well. So yeah, it's June is not an easy month, so you have to
You mean
kind of
January?
January is not an easy month, so you're gonna have to buckle down and get points when they're available. And at some point, you're going to have to get points against good teams too. You can't just beat the mid tier to lower tier teams. You're going to have to find a way to steal wins against good teams too, and that starts next week. But before that, they have Detroit, and like Snell said, you you need 2 points out of that hockey game.
They just
Detroit,
fired their coach. They just
yeah,
hired a new
they're a
coach.
mess.
They're a fragile team right now. Like they
They're
don't.
a mess.
Steve
Um,
Yzerman is pulling shoots, like just trying to find
yeah,
ways to save not only his job, I think, but like try to get this team into some semblance of a contender, just a competitive bubble team at this point. The Penguins need to go in there with confidence and put the pin down. I think it's a mandatory 2 points because, Robbie, I'm looking at the schedule. It's a tough schedule for the next like 2 months with like a couple of like must win 2 pointer type games in between. I mean, Florida, Carolina, Columbus isn't that far behind you in the standings, Robbie. Edmonton, Ottawa wants to take your head off. They want to put a pin in you.
yeah.
Tampa, Seattle, they're not good. They need to. That's a gimme game. That could be a trap game, as they call them. They need to get that. Buffalo, same deal. Washington's good. L.A., Anaheim, trap game. Seattle, trap game. San Jose. I mean, San Jose is not giving up any free wins, easy points with those young studs they got down there. Utah is one of those bubble teams, but in the Pacific, you never know what you're going to get from them. Nashville, who knows with them? New Jersey, New York, Philadelphia, Washington, New York, Philly, Boston, Toronto, Colorado, Vegas, Minnesota, Vegas. That's a tough stretch right there.
Yeah.
That's like 2.5 weeks of buckle up because it could be. I mean, they need to stay competitive in those games. That's a tough ask. Those are all. I mean, there's a lot of Stanley Cup contenders, and you're getting some of them back to back in those games. So, I mean, I don't know. It'll be really interesting to see what, this could like make or break them over the next couple of weeks.
Oh,
We've been saying
absolutely.
that
Yeah.
there could be
Yeah.
a week where it seems that they're out of it. If they have a good week, you're maybe thinking we'll just coast into a playoff spot. It's going to be an interesting stretch here over this kind of over the bulk of winter, really.
Yeah, there's not going to be any coasting for this team at any point. You can't afford another stretch like you had at the end of October through most of November. You just can't
No.
afford that because other teams are going to get hot. They're going to have hot streaks. So yeah, you can't. There's going to be no coasting. There's going to be no nights off. There's going to be no easy games. So yeah, that's what we kind of point back to Tuesday night here, New Year's Eve. They need to go out and get 2 points from Detroit one way or another before January really kicks up because you'll feel really good going into 2025 then. It kind of gives you your head right heading into the new year, heading into the midway point. So, yeah, it's going to be a very important stretch coming up, but every stretch is going to be important for the Penguins. Still digging themselves out of that early start, and maybe they go on a run. Who knows? Maybe they just keep it going. They go on a run. Crazier things have happened. This season's already been kind of turned on its head. So fingers crossed they can keep stacking wins. And when we're talking at the end of January, after that long road trip, we're talking about a team that is still in a playoff spot. Maybe we're lucky and there's some cushion. But if not, just enough to stay in the conversation until the finish line in April.
Oh man, and it's such a what makes me feel the weirdest about this season, Robbie, where in seasons prior, I really don't know if the big picture had set in for me as a fan, as like an avid watcher of the Penguins, kind of where Dubas had made it somewhat clear what he was trying to do, but I mean, Robbie, we were confused at times.
Yeah.
And I feel like this year, more so than the last few years, I have a better idea of what the big picture kind of is. And and why I bring that up is because, looking at the schedule ahead and the wins that they've accumulated, where they've gotten themselves, it's not like this is 2013, 2014, 2015, where you feel like there's just maybe the Penguins just need a big move to kind of get them over a hump. They're in the middle of the season right now. There's no big move to make. Dubas has had to pull a couple of strings here and there, not even trade necessarily, but, the Jari stint in the minors for, a couple of weeks and, bringing up Yoel Blomqvist and, the Tomasino, which was like such a under the radar move that paid off. It seemed it sparked something. Um, just there's the Kevin Hayes in and out of. There's been so many weird things, but it doesn't really feel like the Penguins have a big, like in prior years. If they were slumping, you could rely on Jim Rutherford to shake up the team with a massive trade, good player in, good player out type of deal. I really don't think that that's where Dubas is at with his plan with this team. So it's kind of nerve wracking for me thinking over the next couple of weeks, no matter how bad it gets, like we had to do in the beginning of the year. We got to ride that wave, man, and that's just where the Penguins are at. If they're good, it's all thanks to the team finding answers probably within. So, do you ever feel like that? Has that ever crossed your mind where it's like, man, there is no Carl Hagelin trade to be made, there is no Phil Kessel deal to be made, there's no I don't know, name a whatever. There's no like good depth player that they're just gonna pick up out of thin air and have just like there's nothing. No veterans are probably coming to this team this year unless maybe they find themselves safely in a playoff spot and they go out and add a little something at the deadline. But that's way too far ahead. But there's no imminent change coming to save them. Do you feel?
Yeah, there's no lifeline trade.
Yes.
Anywhere here. There's no. I think the only significant year trade you're going to see from the Penguins is a sell trade. I don't think even if they're in, because they're not going to be in a comfortable playoff position unless they go on like a 10 or 12 game winning streak. It's just not going to happen. What you're going to see more than anything is a big sell trade. Even if they're still in the mix, if somebody comes along and offers the right price for like a Marcus Pettersson, it would not shock me to see Dubas make that trade and just say like, hey, we're still competing. It's just something we couldn't say no to.
Almost like addition by subtraction type of trade.
Kind of like a Gensel trade, kind of like
right.
If the talks with Pettersson aren't there, like they weren't with Gensel, I could easily see him Dubas make that trade and have no qualms about it. There's no Jim Rutherford rescue trade.
Exactly.
There's not going to be a blockbuster that brings in a big name to help them, quote unquote, get over the hump. The only big trade that's coming, if it comes at all, is a sell trade. And I don't think they'd even have to be out of it at the trade deadline to make that trade, because they weren't
kind of like the Flyers last year, right? Where they were in a playoff spot until the end, but they were wheeling and dealing. Like they made some moves to like.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Penguins are in that, and that's kind of an odd feeling. Like when was the last time they were in a spot like that?
Yeah, because the Flyers, the Flyers, even last year, like they knew that, like, okay, they were in a playoff spot. You could get to the playoffs ahead of schedule. They weren't. Yeah, they were, I guess, technically ahead of schedule, but again, you look at this year, maybe not. They weren't going to even compete for a cup last year.
No, they weren't contenders.
Yes, they maybe get the playoffs, get some experience. The Capitals are the same way. The Capitals made trades last year and snuck into the playoffs by like the skin of their teeth and got absolutely routed by the Rangers. The Capitals knew they weren't contenders last year, so they went out and made trades. Kyle Dubas knows this team isn't a Stanley Cup contender, so it would not surprise me if he made some sells at the deadline to get ready for next year and take whatever this year brings you. If you can get to the playoffs, get these guys some experience, the younger guys, get Crosby back to the playoffs. But in reality, there's no lifeline trade coming to help this team in any significant way from now to the trade deadline. So, yeah, the team you have now is kind of the team you're going to roll with and hope for the best. Is really where they're really the path they're on.
Well, it's like what can you really even do? Like the one thing that sticks out to me, and like I think like no matter how well he plays throughout the stretch here, is like I think the only person I'd be comfortable with moving on from really would be the Jari contract. You know, no matter how much better he plays. Like that's just I don't know if that's I don't know where you stand with that, Robbie, but if it comes down to it, like I don't know, I that's one guy I wouldn't mind like seeing a shakeup with, but even that, you're stuck with Jari at this point. No one's taking Jari off of your hands for free that would make it worth it or make your team better.
Yeah.
Down the line, it'll be interesting to see, like, contenders. I'm sure injuries will happen. Maybe they put their hand up and start asking about a defenseman on your team. Yeah, like a Marcus Pettersson, or God forbid, if they were desperate enough, a Ryan Graves, uh, something like that. But that's wishful thinking. Maybe not Pettersson. That'll probably happen. But a Jari or a Graves or something like that. Uh, I don't really know if that'll ever come to fruition. So yeah, no save your skin type of trade. You're kind of just stuck with what you got, but that's a part of Dubas's plan and process at this point, and I just think that that's kind of it's new territory, because we've always been so like they're slumping, make a move, and GM Jim Rutherford
Yeah.
is just such a gunslinger. So
Yeah.
not right now, not with where the Penguins are at in their development, and that'll be, I don't know, it could be awesome, and it could be tough at times.
Yeah. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the plan is as they
Maybe
get
more
close.
moves like they did today with Nathan Klurman at 26 making his NHL debut.
We're just gonna bring up all the Wilkes-Barre guys at some point and see how that works.
I'm
Which,
for
hey,
it. They're
yeah, I
kind of
mean,
rolling.
if you get to the point where um, you want to make a try to make mix it up a little bit, a Tristan Bros getting a shot, a
Boris
Thurman,
Kachuk.
yeah, Big Bo,
Yeah.
Big Bo. Um, Joel Blomqvist is down there. Rucker McGroarty's down there. Yeah, um, you have options down there to maybe mix it up a little bit with the big club. So it'll be interesting to see how they go about it. And a lot of it's going to be determined on what happens these next few weeks leading up to the trade deadline and stuff. Because, again, if they would fall completely out of contention, I think you'll see Kyle Dubas stick a for sale sign outside of PPG Paints Arena somewhere. But if they stay in it, I think unless the right call comes along for a guy like a Marcus Pettersson, but if somebody calls up and says, "Hey, we really need a goalie. Let's talk on Jari." Kyle Dubas is going to pick up the phone on that too, whether or not he'll say that publicly. So, and I'd be
How,
all for that, at least listening, because I mean, if they could somehow sacrifice a playoff spot but get rid of Tristan Jari's contract, that would be as good as a playoff berth, in my opinion.
I agree wholeheartedly, but I think that also gives you room for a Yoel Blomqvist to come up.
Yeah.
And I mean, that guy's proven that he's as cool as a cucumber in the net in the NHL. He did not seem afraid, and he played quite well. Kind of a bright spot during a dark time in this season for the Penguins. Yeah, like if you're Kyle Dubas, like a little mile in Kyle's shoes for the listeners. If you're Kyle Dubas and let's say a goaltender, a good goaltender on a playoff team, East or West, doesn't matter, goes down long term, and he gives you a call, and can you make Tristan Jari like a $3.5 million player for the rest of his contract? Would you be listening on that?
Yeah, I think I would.
Because you could probably ask you could sweeten the deal then. Not only are you taking the contract, but give us your first this year.
Yeah, yeah, I think you could definitely, if you're willing to take some money, hold on to some money, you could definitely um, sweeten the pot a little bit and hopefully get a better return than if you were just shipping him off as is.
Because you'll have Yoel Blomqvist at entry level
Yep.
contract for the next couple of years, and if you got to eat a couple million on a Jari contract for the next couple of years, might come out in the wash. But I'm no mathematician, and I'm not Kyle Dubas for sure. If I were Dubas, I'd be doing stingy business right now. But the other thing I was going to ask you, Robbie, and it's an odd question for where the Penguins are at, but over the next couple weeks, something's going to shake out with this team, whether they kind of solidify themselves as a playoff contender, not a cup contender, but a playoff contender, or they're going to really fall out of it. And it's going to be kind of where we predicted them to be, kind of on the bubble looking in, or on the outsides looking in. And out of the three, let's exclude Carlson from this practice, but like, and let's actually take Sid out of it too. But I would say between like Evgeny Malkin and Chris Letang, if a team came calling for their
They're
services
not
out
going to
of the
trade either one of those guys. And I
no, no,
wouldn't
no,
be
but
either.
just no, of course you're not. But out of those two, do you think what if one of them wanted to go win? What if they were like, I don't know if I got much in the tank after this? What out of those two, who do you think would come tap Dubas on the shoulder and say, "Let me go to this team"?
I think I'd see Letang doing it before Malkin.
I think
Um,
so too. I feel
yeah,
like before it would be Malkin, few years,
yeah,
quite a number of years ago, a lot of chat of him being, he could have gone and been the number one guy for a lot of reasons, but I think Sid and him just have that, they want to do it together. Letang is in that boat, but don't you think a team looking for a stud right D, and if they needed one and they can, and Letang was comfortable with it, you could see him maybe putting his hand
yeah,
up saying, I'll waive.
yeah. I could see that.
I don't think Dubas is going to them. I think it would have to come from them.
Yeah,
But I just was
probably.
curious, out of those two guys, who do you think would be the most likely to be like, I want to go contend one more time?
I could see it being Letang. Malkin, I don't know what Malkin has left. And I think Malkin is perfectly happy ending his career in Pittsburgh with the 3 cups and um, all the other accolades. I really think Malkin is tied to Sid at the hip, so I really don't see that one breaking up after everything they went through to get that contract re-signed, basically at the 11th hour. Yeah, I definitely think it would be if I had to pick one, I'd say Letang over Malkin.
Right on. Well, hopefully no one's
Yeah,
going anywhere.
yeah. Hopefully,
You
no
never
one.
know with Carlson too. Carlson isn't exactly married to the Penguins. You know what I
No,
mean?
yeah.
Like,
I mean, Carlson, I could definitely see. Um, Again, a lot of money would not be an easy trade to make in season. I think it still would be more likely an out of season trade just because of that contract. But I could see Carlson after this season if he's not happy or the Penguins feel like they can get some value, sitting down, hammering something out with a team, maybe even a team that's more of a contender um, than the Penguins. Um,
I
so
think Carlson may have hurt his reputation a bit more being in Pittsburgh. I don't know.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
I love Carlson, and I like his kind of loosey goosey attitude a bit at times. It does drive me crazy too, but I don't know where his stock is necessarily at. The Penguins bought high on him.
yeah,
Actually, Dubas did an awesome job with that trade. That was him
yeah.
coming out of the gates firing, but Carlson was coming off a Norris winning season. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I kind of want them all to stay. I like the roller coaster that these guys provide.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, Robbie, I think that's all I really got for these last couple of games. And dude, big game in Detroit on the eve of the new year. I think it's a mandatory 2 points, and you kick
Yeah,
the Detroit Red Wings while they're down.
absolutely. And yeah, that game is at 8 o'clock on New Year's Eve, so it'll take you about right up to midnight. Not quite, a little short of midnight, but it'll give you something to watch heading into the new year. Let's just hope it is a treat um, and doesn't leave a sour taste in your mouth as the clock strikes midnight um, wherever you are. So yeah, the Penguins they split the home and home with the Islanders, losing 6-3 on Saturday night, winning 3-2 on Sunday night, and that is their action coming out of the Christmas break. Next up, as we said, the Islanders or the Red Wings on New Year's Eve, kicking off a little 3-game road trip that takes them to Florida and Carolina as well. So Snell, if you don't have anything else, I don't have anything else.
I'm good.
All right. Put a cap on this one. We'll talk to you guys later this week. Be safe. Have a happy new year. Talk to you guys soon.